What is up, duelists? I just got back home from YCS Bologna where I was able to make top 8 with K9 Vanquish Soul. Unfortunately not a two-time YCS Bologna champion, but I'm still happy with the result. Want to share the list and my experience with you guys. Unk still got it, even with the new top 8 system after 15 rounds, went 13-2. Lost in top 8 to K9 Mitsurugi. Before we hop into the list, I want to give some shoutouts first and foremost to Dinka Bui, who played the exact same list card for card. Also, of course, all of Team Raid and Trade, who I spent a lot of time testing Pure Yummy with, actually, which was my second choice for the event. A couple of them played it. It was a Pure Yummy list featuring Izuna as a hand trap, because that card is just phenomenal, this format. And if you want to check out that list, I believe Maxi posted his one that he got top 64 with on the Raid and Trade channel. So if you're interested in the Pure Yummy list with Izuna, you might want to check that out. Yeah, other than that, I had a great time at the event. Thank you everyone for rooting, and we're gonna go through the list, and I'm gonna talk about why I chose to play this deck in the first place. But we'll get to that as we go through the cards. So starting with the cards, we have the Vanquish Soul cards, and obviously Vanquish Soul Holy Sue is one of the reasons to play this deck, because you get to play a very strong in-engine hand trap, of course. I did not resolve this card a single time going second in the entire event, actually, which is just due to the nature of Raisin being limited, so you have very few fire monsters. So I never actually got to resolve it, but it just being a level 5... well, I got to resolve it, but not going second as a hand trap. But rather, like, going first, you still summon it with yugioh. You can search it with Raisin, and then you have your fire set up and stuff like that. So you get to resolve it, but it's not as easy to just hard open it. We have 3 Jiaolongs, which mandatory now with the K9s being part of the deck. Fire doesn't do much on its own, but level 5 Fire Vanquish Soul in its name is really all you need from it. Was able to research with it maybe like twice over the course of the entire weekend because you just don't have enough fires. 3 Mad Loves, your best Vanquish Soul normal summon of the deck to grab the field spell, of course, and then the 1 Raisin, sadly, just 1, followed by 1 Borger. Don't personally see a reason to play more than 1. This card is kind of a brick if you don't see your Vanquish Soul engine already, and even if you do, it's just like it's a nice bonus to have it if you can play with Vanquish Soul already, but it's not like insane this format. So there's not that much targeting negation, I feel like, not that much imperm, not as much Veiler, so it loses some value there. Also, the K9 cards give you a lot of darks. And then 1 Valius to maximize on your Vanquish Soul interruptions, of course. And honestly, these cards, as much as I like Vanquish Soul, and as much as I would love to tell you that these are the stars of the deck, the real heavyweight, the real lifting comes from the K9 package. And these cards are super well positioned in the current format. Triple Noroi, triple Jokul. This card is absurd. It's basically impossible to interact with this card with quote-unquote fair hand traps like the one-on-one Imperm, Veiler, Ash, what have you. You need to basically meet Jokul with like a Charmy or a Droll and Lockbird, or you are not going to stop me from playing, which is a really unfair part of this deck, and really not what I usually liked Vanquish Soul for, but, it is just the way we have to play this deck now because they took away Raisin and Stake Your Soul, so you're forced into this direction. But honestly, this is what makes the deck work in the current format. As well as Izuna. These cards are super well positioned. This deck has a great Draco Tail matchup, which was one of the main reasons I wanted to play it. I faced, I believe, 6 or 7 Draco Tail in the tournament, and I beat every single one of them. And I believe the majority of them were 2-0s. Because the Draco Tail deck just has a really hard time dealing with your pushes, especially because all the K9s, or specifically Jokul, you just summon the stuff in defense so they can't horn anything. Lupus makes your stuff untargetable, and Izuna is a great hand trap. And Charlie agrees that the Draco Tail matchup is very easy. And then we got 1 Lantern, of course, the extender, not a starter on its... I mean, it technically can start you off because you can normal summon it at the start of the game. You're trying not to do that. Of course, you're trying to revive with it. But yeah, so the K9 engine is really what makes this deck broken. And the Vanquish Souls are more like a bonus and just happen to have a bunch of level 5s in the mix. And it just happens that the pure K9 deck isn't strong enough, so you need something on top that you can convert this into, because this produces a lot of bodies, but there's not that many good ranked 5s that you want to make on turn 1. So you usually, if you don't have access to the Vanquish Souls, you just turn these into Ripper plus Saryuja, and that probably draws your Vanquish Souls, and then there you go. Additional hand traps. We got 3 Fuba. This card is essentially mandatory in this format if you want to have any chance in game 1, going second against decks like this one, Mitsurugi Yami, Pure Yami, Malice. Like this card is extremely important. Triple Ash Blossom, because it beats Fuwa, and also because it's a fire, really important in this deck. Double Bell. I just wanted some more non-engine, and Bell was like the next best option in my opinion in the main deck. Didn't want to play Nibiru because it's very awkward against Draco Tail and doesn't have the right attribute either. So Ghost Bell was decent. This is a flex spot though. Everything else so far I would consider mandatory at the moment. But the Bells are something that I liked them, but they are not like set in stone. You could play something else here. 1 Magna, 1 Druid, mainly because I really wanted to play Magnamood in this deck because it allows you to interrupt Mitsu or Yami and some other decks in the format, while also producing like another card in your hand in the end phase, which lets you keep up the attributes and the grind game. This deck already has a really strong grind game, so having a Magnamood on top of that really lets you outgrind those Mitsurugi decks. Specifically, really solid. I like those two a lot, and of course Magnamood can also search you Caesar if you want an Earth or a Vanquish Soul instead of the Druid Worm. And then 1 Shifter because you can. This deck is not really bothered by it. I mean, some of the stuff you do doesn't work. Like, for example, you can't Izuna send Lupus, or you won't be able to resolve a Lantern when you Shifter, or you can't use Rock to add back a Vanquish Soul. But for the most part, that is all very minor. And if your opponent is playing a Yami package or a Draco Tail deck, then Shifter basically just completely skips their turn. You side it out against most decks that involve any sort of like K9, Mitsu, and of course Malice, but it still covers a large portion of the format, and I don't really have to explain why Shifter is a broken Yu-Gi-Oh card. So yeah, won me a couple of games over the course of the tournament. Didn't draw it super often, but the few times I did, it was pretty good. Double case for K9. It is technically a 1-card starter. It's also worth mentioning, it's the worst one because it plays into Droll immediately, and with both Noroi and Jokul, you have the option to play around Droll basically completely. What I end up doing a lot of the time is just make Ripper before I even search with the Jokul. Like, I won't search with the Jokul when it's on the field for the first time. I'll make a Ripper, search with the Ripper, and then if I get Drolled, I can negate the Droll with the Ripper and then get my searches later anyways. Because you can, for example, you can go Lantern, bring back the Jokul, and then you can still search with those. But like, Case is a good card in this deck. I do side out 1 going second basically all the time, and didn't want to play 3 because it's a spell, doesn't have an attribute, and usually throughout your combo you're going to search it anyways. It just happens to be your worst starter as well, so yeah. I decided to main deck the quick play spell. I'm not main decking the Vanquish Soul trap card. I only wanted to play one of the two. Decided on the K9 forced release because I figured it would be the way better plan into Fualos to just make Ripper, get the search for an Azuna on their turn, as well as set the quick play spell for free, which is a really solid setup into Fua with just 1 draw. Vanquish Soul, like, it's just not as reliable because you don't have as many Vanquish Soul starters. So let's say you get Fuwa on your K9 cards, you can't go all the way into Saryuja under Fuwa. At least I don't think it's feasible. And therefore, like, getting to the trap card under Fuwa is not as easy as getting to this. I didn't want to play both in the main deck. I'm siding the trap card. But this also is slightly better going second if you happen to draw it, because you can actually use it as a quick play spell. So if you can play, make an Exceed, you can actually make use of this card as opposed to a trap card that you have to set and wait a turn. For the Vanquish Soul stuff, we have Vanquish Soul Start, Rhoda, and the one Stake Your Soul. So for Vanquish Soul, Start, Borger and Caesar Valius are kind of like engine requirements, but they're not really bricks as long as you have access to any of the other Vanquish Souls, because then they actually become pretty good. Unless you draw specifically Start with Madlove together, which happened to me a couple of times, but so be it. There's no secondary target for Madlove in this deck because I'm not main decking the trap, but post side, it's going to be there. So yeah, the deck felt pretty good. The main deck I was really happy with, honestly. I have almost basically no complaints other than saying like the Bell and the Bastials are not mandatory, but I did really like them. So let's get into the extra deck. So we've got 2 copies of Vanquish Soul, Rock of the Vanquisher, 1 copy of SP Little Knight, and 1 copy of Saryuja. That's all we have for the Link monsters. Of course, these are self-explanatory, and Saryuja is to bridge K9 into Vanquish Soul if you happen to not draw your Vanquish Soul half of the deck. And this also, in some hands, fixes the problem of drawing Noroi and Madlove together, because those are conflicting normal summons. You just have to decide, based on what your hand looks like, do I want to start Noroi, do I want to start Madlove? Madlove is the one that's worse into Droll and Lockbird, but better into Fuwa. And of course, Noroi the other way around. Noroi is also way weaker into Imperm, because with the Madlove, you can at least turn it into the Rock and then keep playing with that. But if you ever decide to start playing with Noroi, what I would end up doing is this eventually specials the Madlove from my hand. 1 Ripper. Wished I had room for 2, but decided to go for some more utility instead. I was honestly fine with 1 Ripper, sometimes wanted the second, but usually was able to pull it off without it. 1 Jax and 1 Werewolf. I think having both of these is essential. Werewolf is most of the time the correct option to go into with the quick play spell, the more powerful option on the opponent's turn, because getting to see their hand and then banish a card from it is completely absurd. But then also I really wanted the Jax, because having a second K9 Exceed in the extra deck for when you are locked into K9s because of Noroi's effect, or when you're making a rank 5 on the opponent's turn with Lupus, having another one that immediately offers you removal is really nice. So I would really recommend playing all 3 of these. 1 Tiraz, which is supposed to help a lot against like decks like Mitsuyami, and I guess also Mitsu K9 for that matter, because it can't be destroyed by card effects. And if you have a Lupus under it, it also cannot be targeted, meaning that the Mitsurugi engine simply cannot out it. At the end of the battle phase, it'll pop a card if it has battle. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to go battle phase, attack. At the end of the battle phase, try to hit the Mitsurugi trap card, and then main phase 2, make a big Zeus to out their board. Which, you know, I guess in my top 8 feature match, I learned you're supposed to put it in the extra monster zone. Which is something that I didn't really think of the Gorgon in that moment. It was just something that, because I picked up Vanquish Soul kind of last minute and I was going to play Yami instead, I feel like I played the deck well over the course of the weekend, but that one specific interaction with Tiras against the Gorgon is something that I hadn't encountered before, because people just told me like relatively short-handed before the tournament, like, hey, this is something you should be doing if you're playing Azuna. And so yeah, but I thought about it, and I don't think I would have won that game 1 in top 8 regardless. And to be honest with you, if you're playing a K9 combo deck, you kind of just like accept the fact that if you lose the dice roll in a K9 mirror match, it's going to be pretty tough going second. That is just the nature of the combo heavy nature of this deck, really, after adding the K9 cards, which is my least favorite aspect of the deck, but it is what it is. You know, it is what I had to do, or it is what has to be done in order to play Vanquish Soul. And I think it was a really good meta call, because it has a really good matchup against Draco Tail. And also, like, the other matchups are fine, but the side tech specifically makes the other matchups a lot better. Nash Knight with the Sea Nash Knight, and I decided to play the Masquerade package, mainly for games where I go first and I don't get like hand trapped, and so I can pop my own case to get the quick play spell, because the quick play spell is what makes your board more layered. This could also be like the Silent Honor Dark package. Honestly, for the most part, those felt interchangeable to me. The most important part about all of this is that you want to be able to suck twice with the Nash Knight in some game states when you make it going second, and then detach 2, attach the Masquerade, attach something from the opponent, and then on your turn you can either rank it up or you can do it again. Yeah. No Valon. Decided to play the Tiras over the Valon, and I figured if I need removal, the Nash Knight is gonna be here for me. And never missed the Valon. 1 Rocks for utility, and because it also technically helps you out a Liger Dancer if you happen to play against Lunalight, because what you're trying to do is basically you're trying to establish a Ripper and then activate the Vanquish Soul field spell, which they cannot Silverhound while you have Ripper. Or rather, if they do Silverhound it, you can negate the Silverhound with Ripper. And then you can protect your Vanquish Souls from being destroyed by the Liger Dancer. And then you make this and boost your Valius to 4,000 is the idea, essentially. Also, sometimes it can help remove some stuff off the board. If you can put it on a Holy Sue, you get to destroy a card, and it makes an easier SP to banish a card. You can sometimes make a Zeus with it. There's a lot of things you can do with this. This doesn't come up very often. You don't have to play this. I was considering playing a wind-up Zenmayo instead to summon in defense against Dracotail and just pop their traps before they can use them, but honestly, the Dracotail matchup is already really strong, so I decided not to do that. Typhon and Zeus, these two are absolutely mandatory, in my opinion, in any deck that plays Izuna, but especially in this one. Like, even outside of Izuna, these can come up a lot, and outside of the rank 5s and Werewolf, these were probably the most summoned. Like, there's honestly a chance I summoned Typhon more often than SP Little Knight. I'm not sure, but like, the utility stuff, you don't have a lot of utility outside of the rank 5s, but the ones you do play come up a lot. So like Typhon and Zeus summoned very, very often. So yeah. Side deck, and this is one of my other favorite parts of why I chose to play this deck over Yummy, is because I wanted to play a deck that could fulfill one specific criteria for this format, which is to be able to play these in the side deck and perform well with them. So the idea is basically that there's a couple of decks in this format, namely everything that involves K9 combo, Mitsurugi, Yummy, basically everything that involves Mitsurugi as well that isn't pure Mitsurugi, and Malice as well, are all decks that are basically impossible to stop with fair hand traps, like one-on-one interaction, in my opinion, unless you get very lucky. Like the stuff like Ash, Imperm, whatever, like it's just, in my opinion, not going to stop these decks from comboing. And so what I needed was a deck that could use Charmies to max potential and still be able to break half boards that decks make after Charmies. In my opinion, it was super important to play all 9 because these get incredibly more powerful if you pair 2 different ones, especially against Mitsurugi and Mitsurugi Yami's stuff. Just one Charmy is something they can easily play around. Doesn't matter which one it is. Like, even if it's Fuwa, Mitsurugi can like ritual summon from hand and then ritual summon from grave with the mirror and stuff like that. But if you pair 2 different Charmies together, it becomes basically impossible for them to set up something. I mean, they can set up a half board, it's fine, in like a couple of draws, but they have to be very careful. And as soon as you then, after you've used 1 or 2 Charmies, if you draw into any of your other interruptions like Izuna, Holy Sue, Nibiru that I'm about to show you, all that stuff becomes so much more potent if Charmies are active. And so I really wanted to play a deck that has strong engine, in-engine hand traps, and gets great synergy with the Charmies because it can play well into half boards. And that's, in my opinion, this deck does this the best, and this is why I felt like I was always super fine, even if I had to go second in game 3s, if I was able to see one of these. Unfortunately, didn't see any in top 8 game 3, but it is what it is. 3 Nibs, like I said, another one of those great cards against pure Yummy, Malice, all that. But even against Mitsu Yummy, I think this becomes really strong if you pair it with one of the Charmies, because you basically force them into an awkward line with the Charmy, and that probably gets punished by the Nib a lot harder. And even if they have something like, if they have another ritual that can trigger, if they want to bring it back, you get another draw off of Meows and so on and so forth. So that was basically the idea. As well as 3 copies of Imperm. This card replaced Retaliating Sea for me because I do think the Dracotail matchup is already really, really good. And I wanted something to respect K9 decks, because you really want an answer in the K9 mirror match to normal summon Noroi. If they normal summon Noroi, you really want Imperm for that, because that threatens a lot of pushes and card advantage and all that. And so I chose Imperm because Imperm also works against Dracotail, is a decent card. But it is way better than Retaliating Sea in other matchups, because I really didn't feel like it was correct in this deck to play a card just for Dracotail, because this deck is already so good against Dracotail. So I was more worried about like K9, Malice, all the other combo decks basically, because I'm playing a combo deck myself, so I wanna make sure I don't just lose if I lose the dice roll.
which for the most part was not an issue for me. I won a lot of game threes going second over the course of the weekend, so that was nice. And then we got 3 cards for going first to take out the Charmies. The Vanquish Soul Trap, Talents, and Called By. In some matchups, you side in 1 Nibiru over the Shifter, but this is basically the 4 cards I would side going first 99.9% of the time. Some matchups you want 3 Nibirus, like Malice, for example. I would side in 3 Nibirus going first, but usually this for the Charmies, and then some amount of Nibiru or Imperm if you want to take out Shifter or some other cards in the matchups. But that's basically it for the side deck. Once again, I think the 9 Charmy technology paired with the Nib and some in-engine hand traps was really the reason why I wanted to play this deck, and the reason why I felt like, especially post-side, it was the best deck for the tournament. So yeah, that was the deck list. Once again, I think top 8, despite the Tiras not going in the EMZ, which is just due to me not having enough practice with that specific, technology, because I kind of switched to this deck last minute. I'm not too mad about it. I think I probably lose anyways, but I can't complain about it, because it just was something that was due to, something I could have prepared for better. Other than that, event was a blast. Had a great time. Shout outs to Emre, Niels, and Maxi who traveled with me. Had a wonderful weekend. Thank you all for cheering. Hope you enjoyed the deck list. And yeah, happy to finish in top 8. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.